Hey Pop Kids, Notcast 228, good God, where do those numbers go? Today, Sunday, 28th of August 2022, the Sunday of the August Bank Holiday weekend, the weekend that Reading and Leeds happens. As I am now officially an old person, I looked at the Leeds bill and recognised about two names on there and went, I feel like Grandpa Simpson. This also means that 10 years ago this weekend I saw The Cure play the Reading Festival, and 24 years ago I saw New Order at the Reading Festival, immortalised, if that is the correct word, on this DVD 316, live at the Reading Festival 1998, which easily in my top 10 gigs of all time. That gig, absolutely. Second time I saw New Order. I talked about it on a previous Notcast when I was talking about New Order's dodgy, awkward post-Republic split years. But today I am not talking about New Order. As you can tell from the Notcast title, I am talking about R.E.M. and their penultimate studio album released in 2008, alongside a whole bunch of other things. The album is Accelerate. I think it's their 14th album, maybe their 15th album. I don't know. You lose track after a while. It just, that becomes the thing that you did in 2008, is you released an album. And if you're in R.E.M, what a lot of them there are. Somewhat oddly, I think actually it's 17 albums they released, plus a number of live things. What a good discography it is. And this also, by the way, is the last album that R.E.M toured. They didn't tour again after this. I saw the band twice on the Accelerate tour, and what a way to go out. I mean, certainly amongst my my favourite R.E.M shows, which I'll talk about when I get to that point. The period was kind of started off with the band slimming down to a five-piece, so losing their third guitarist, I think, and rehearsing as a five-piece in Dublin, resulting in the R.E.M Live at the Olympia set that was released in 2009. And as I talked about this set in the previous episode, this is effectively the Accelerate album live, with I think almost all of the songs off the album, plus three songs that didn't make it onto the record. So those three songs were Disguised, which was later rewritten and appeared as the album's first single, Supernatural, Superserious, and two extra songs, Staring Down the Barrel of the Middle Distance and On the Fly, both of which are pretty good. I'm glad we've got official recordings of them released in 2009 on this set, but obviously perhaps I think were held back for future releases, in much the same way as there's a track called Until the Day is Done, is a version of a demo from the Monster period. And a number of other songs are also later turned into R.E.M songs when inspiration strikes at a later date. Instead, let's talk about the R.E.M album, Accelerate, the first album recorded as a five-piece, with Scott McCoy on vocals and guitar and keyboards and extra bits, and the wonderful drummer Bill Riflin, formerly also of the Ministry and the Revolting Cocks, on drums, and you can really hear the impression that the band had. Now, I don't have a vinyl copy of Accelerate. At that time, I wasn't the kind of person that was buying vinyl records. Obviously, I am these days, but vinyl copies of Accelerate are pretty tough to find, and they're expensive. They're double vinyl as well, and the album's only 34 minutes long, so you have to get up every 9 minutes and change sides, which is boring. So instead, I went for the deluxe edition of this, and this, I think, is the first album where I started to feel that maybe R.E.M were starting to become a little bit more normal. I think maybe it's the first of the R.E.M albums that doesn't have a dedicated 5.1 mix. From the period from Document through to Around the Sun, we've got 5.1 mixes of all of the albums that were issued on DVD alongside the documentaries in the reissue program. This is the first one that's just available in the stereo mix. This and the subsequent album collapse into now are just stereo releases. So the most recent of the R.E.M catalogue that doesn't have a 5.1 edition, although it does have a DVD release. And in this day, the bands were still releasing premium physical product. in so much as there was a period of time, probably from around about 2002 to maybe 2010, where bands would do deluxe editions of albums, and you could get DVDs that would come with them, and it would be interviews or live shows or a concert film or something, series of promo videos that really just kind of pushed people towards buying the physical product and away from either streaming it or just downloading it, the MP3s, for free. That battle was well and truly lost by the time we got to about 2009, 2010. And so, for example, collapse into now, the subsequent R.E.M. album, but the only thing about it that was there was a special edition. The first time that there was a special edition that wasn't very special, it was actually just a slipcase on a CD, as opposed to anything else. Whereas every other album had something special about it. So I think you go to Out of Time, it had a wooden box in some versions of it. Automatic for the People came with some fancy packaging. Monster came in the book pack. New Adventures in Hi-Fi came in as some kind of weird book version as well. Up came in what looked like a very elaborate piece of cardboard packaging and a box. Reveal came in the big photo book, and Around the Sun got the box set with the 14 special expanded pieces of artwork. Accelerate just came in this, the DVD edition, the CD DVD edition of the album. And to me, I started to feel a little bit like maybe the band was starting to not feel perhaps quite as engaged as before. It was a very difficult time to be a band. People weren't buying CDs, they weren't buying records, everybody was streaming things. Nobody really knew where the money was going, but it definitely wasn't going to the label. So let's go through the album. So there's a standard CD here of Accelerate. There is a DVD that features the documentary film 6 Days by Vincent Moon, again featuring Vincent Moon's infuriatingly obtuse hallmarks of high grain, 8mm, low quality, black and white footage and incoherent editing. I am not a fan of Vincent Moon. I'm sure he's not a fan of me. I don't particularly care. But there was a time when he was doing the DVDs on every band that I liked. And I was like, really? There are other people. It's kind of like sometimes you look at an artist and you go, right, I've got a real feel for what your packaging is. And incidentally, by the way, Accelerate does contain this gorgeous piece of packaging here, which is a kind of like a PVC printed sleeve that effectively becomes the DVD case. It's the only time I've seen a DVD case that's actually transparent. And then the booklet kind of slots inside and sits through there, so you've kind of got a very tactile piece of art there. Certainly at some points it felt to me that perhaps Michael Stipe was more interested in the visual representation of the art than he was of the band itself, and kind of the singing and the music itself perhaps wasn't where his heart truly lay, which, given the fact that there hasn't been an album that Michael Stipe has sung on that has been released in the past 10 years, kind of indicates that perhaps that's not where his creativity sits. Not necessarily a bad thing, by the way, but we have to do what we love and love what we do, right? And if perhaps your heart doesn't necessarily belong into something, you shouldn't really be doing it. Anyway, Accelerate, CD, DVD edition, also some very, very fancy packaging here. But first we talk about the first single that was released from the album, Supernatural, Superserious, which appeared in a slightly different form as disguised on R.E.M. Live at the Olympia. And Supernatural, Superserious always reminds me of The Simpsons. There's a bit where he sings about, you lied and you lied, and I always think about it being very kind of Larry the Lamb kind of vocals. The bit where Lisa Simpson talks about Larry the Lamb, and they lied, they died. Physical formats for the single releases were pretty difficult to get, actually. There's a 7-inch of Supernatural, Superserious. I didn't get that. There's a promotional CD single. This is a CDR, actually, released on the 11th of February 2008, and that was the first shot across the bows from the band. So a month out from the first live shows that the band did was this single, Supernatural, Superserious. And for the first time, Supernatural, Superserious really felt like a breath of fresh air after all the other songs which were on the Around the Sun album. Around the Sun, as you will know, I am absolutely not a fan of at all. I think it's a crap album. It's probably the worst R.E.M. album. And Around the Sun was the sound of 3 people in a studio making songs by committee and assembling them like patchwork or Lego or a lasagna, where you kind of go, well, what have you got left? Well, we've got this, we've got that, we've got the other one, and putting them all together and hoping that you'll create something that sounds like an album, but really It's an assortment of songs, and an album is a very, very different beast. Supernatural, Superserious, for the first time in a long time, sounded like exactly what it was, which was five guys in a room making a racket and enjoying turning up their fuzz pedals. It's a great song, always went down very, very well live. Highlighted the shows on this period, and as I said, got a release as a CD single, although in a very, very limited pressing, and got a release as a 7-inch single. So this is the CD single, which is backed with a track called Airliner, the non-album track. In fact, the CD single was such an afterthought that they forgot to stick a barcode on it, and in fact they had to put the barcode on a sticker that they had then affixed to the CD single as a physical sticker, which kind of shows you that they weren't really thinking about chart positions. Certainly, as far as I was concerned at this point, R.E.M had been famous for 20 years. They've been in my life since about 1990, maybe 1989. I was very much feeling like old Father Time, looking at all the people that were into these young, newfangled bands with "the" in front of their name. Um, like, whoever they are, the Coldplay and Lady Gaga and all those. Although I know that's obviously Matt Berry's pronunciation of those words, and I was kind of feeling like I'm not a young dude anymore. Music is a young dude's game, and I'm aging into what I'm going to become. And of course, it's never too late to become what you might have been. And what I've become is a middle aged man talking about music, talking to my mobile phone, and hoping that anybody, watches these. But there you are, we all become who we might have been. Um, so Supernatural, Superserious, I think fantastic opening track, actually, really good song, and it really sounded like a breath of fresh air after the other material that the band had done recently. It sounded like what it was: five people in a room making a racket, turning up the pedals, screaming their hearts out. Really brilliant, absolutely what you need, and it was kind of proof that you didn't have to automatically become old and crap. You think about bands' penultimate albums, and you kind of sometimes you listen to them and go, should have hung it up a couple of albums sooner. Specifically, I am kind of thinking about bands that I like, but bands that I used to like that aren't very good anymore. And no, I won't name any names, but I don't go see them live very often, even if they do play live every week, because it's the same songs, the same 12, 13 songs from the first part of their career, the same token 4 or 5 newer songs, which are not particularly good. And of course, the dreaded words at a gig are, here's a new song, and everyone goes, I'm going to go to the bar and get a drink. I'm not interested in the new songs. I'm interested in the songs that tell me about what my life was like when I was 17. Now, sucker that I am, and as you know, I absolutely love bands that stay current and vital and valid and sing and write about what it's like to be alive at the year that the album was released. What was it like to be Michael Stipe or R.E.M. in 2007? Well, Accelerate tells you what that's like. And also what Accelerate does is that it sounds like a band that even if they're not moving you, they're moving. They're trying to find new things. They're trying to find new sounds. And you could argue that actually Accelerate, although a lot of people think, oh, it's a very cynical attempt to recapture the IRS years, or perhaps even, dread to think, go back to the period of Monster. It isn't. It's the REM that have been through all of that are coming back to something else and trying something new. Accelerate is a great album. Now, the worst thing I can say about Accelerate is it is super short. It is about 33 minutes long, and the CD edition is, put technically, brick wall to death, compressed, badly mastered. It sounds like it's been recorded in a microwave. There's no dynamic range in there. If you want to get into it, Google the loudness wars. I can't be bothered to talk my way through all of that, but I tell you without any fear of a doubt that Accelerate is a badly mastered album, and it sounds atrocious on CD. The booklet, by the way, absolutely wonderful. So let's have a look through this. It's a black and white booklet with which is held together by string. It's got a little warning for you: this book will fall apart. And when I bought this and opened this, somehow, I can't believe this is 14 years old already. It is a bunch of super stylized black and white kind of images of things like distorted ideas of what a cityscape might look like. We've got lyrics here, so we've got the lyrics to Supernatural, Superserious. You've got the lyrics to some of the other songs as well, I think. Hollow Man, for example. You've got actually I should have looked through here because I haven't done this for months. You've got Houston there. Then you've got some of the other lyrics for some of the other songs. Accelerate, the title track. It all looks like kind of like zine culture, so photocopies of a photocopy. And then you've got Until the Day is Done there, alongside a quote from William Burroughs, who I am very fond of. Mr. Richards, the lyric to that. What else have we got in here? Sing for the Submarine. R.E.M. being as obtuse as they always have with their titles. Horse to Water. I'm Gonna DJ. And then some title credits for the 6 Days film. I mean, certainly it feels like we've skipped a couple of pages with the lyrics on. Living Well is the Best Revenge there, and Man-Sized Wreath. So all of the albums, and for the first time in a while, the whole album's lyrics are kind of printed out here for you to digest and understand. So we go in with Living Well is the Best Revenge. This is a stonker of a track. First track on the album, first track at almost every live show around about this period. And it feels to me that the band have really got the then current government administration in its sights. So the president at the time was George Bush the Lesser, on his way out very, very clearly, and replaced by Obama in 2009, lost the election. But what you have with Living Well is the Best Revenge is the sound of a band that's clearly kicking against the pricks here, that's alive and alert and writing a song about what it is. So the statement is, of course, Living Well is the Best Revenge, which is a quote from George Herbert, who lived between 1593 and 1633. 30 long years, probably about the average lifespan of somebody at that period of time. Of course, bearing in mind the advances of technology, had I been alive then, I would have been dead for a decade by now. What a waste. But the lyric is clear and direct and obvious, and actually a lot of the songs have a political bent, but they're not the political bent in which you might expect from some bands. It's not the "this person is bad" that you got from Roger Waters. It's more about ethics and morality and the perception and the worldview and the approach that you might take to things like compassion and how do you motivate people? Do you motivate them by starving them and taking the money away from them, or do you motivate them by dangling a carrot in front of them? Whatever it is, sometimes people think that the thing to motivate somebody is to give them more of what they've already got. If they're poor, make them more poor. If they're rich, make them more rich, and that will change their behaviour. And well, that's not how it works, guys. It just isn't. It really isn't. But this lyric is very, very clear. It opens from, "It's only when your poison spins into the life you've hoped to live, and suddenly you wake up in a shaken panic. You had me set up like a lamb to slaughter. Garbo as the farmer's daughter. Unbelievable. The gospel according to who?" And then the chorus goes, "All your sad and lost apostles hum my name and flare their nostrils, choking on the bones you toss to them. And I'm not one to sit and spin, because living well is the best revenge. And baby, I am calling you on that." And it's it's a lyric about living well is the best revenge. It's a great philosophy to have. It's a philosophy I've had when people have, in my opinion, mistreated me. There's a couple of exes that I think would have been very, very happy had I just fallen down to a hole and died surrounded by mud and regret. And of course, the best revenge is to have escaped and eclipsed the fate that they tried to befall upon me, and the fate which actually, if you're, let's say, you regard yourself sometimes as, I think certain people from certain political persuasions kind of regard themselves as outliers, and they think, well, we're the resistance. They never sit down and go, oh, we're the baddies, right? And I'm like, oh God, yes, you guys are definitely the baddies. And sometimes their idea of what it is to actually create a hierarchy. So from a political perspective, Accelerate is a very, very political album. The name Accelerate kind of indicates that culture, media, and the world and politics and consumption seems to be speeding up, not slowing down, and mankind is racing towards some kind of doom. And that kind of reflects through in lyrics like "Living Well is the Best Revenge," "Horse to Water," "Until the Day is Done." The idea that this is almost like a diss match that's being thrown out from somebody that can see the madness around them and going, guys, we're heading straight for the wall. It really is. And horse to water, of course, with the cliche around you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So, from a political perspective, sometimes people that perhaps have different political opinions may seek to want to oppress or control or distort or pervert you, or make you do what they want you to do, much like the lyric of "Turn You Inside Out," and then you go, no. I am going to live well. That is going to be my revenge. I'm going to escape the certain fate that you've cast for me here. I'm going to do what, or perhaps to, as another band might have put it, fuck you, I'll do what you tell me. And then the second song goes over to Man-Sized Wreath, and there's an air of quiet resistance that runs through all of these songs. So Man-Sized Wreath, which by the way I think was the second single from the album. Well, I could be wrong. It might be the third. Opens with the line, "Turn on the TV and what do I see? A pageantry of empty gestures all lined up for me. Nature abhors a vacuum, but what's between your ears? Your judgment clouded with fearful thoughts, headlights and a deer." And so, I mean, all these lyrics are very much around kind of pointing the finger at people in positions of power and authority and questioning that and going, no, respect is earned. It's not just given. Power is deserved. It's not just taken. And it's about those kind of lyrics that very, very clearly kind of point the finger at people in positions of power and authority that think, no, we're the good guys. Oh, no, guys, you're the empire. And also, of course, that they understand the power dynamic that we've got in there. Supernatural, Superserious opens with the lyric, "Everybody here comes from somewhere that we just as soon forget and disguise." And this is, around the fact that we have, when we grow up and we're in certain towns, we have fates that are cast for us. I had one that was cast for me, being a teenager in 80s Birmingham in the UK. My fate was to work at the car factory or the chocolate factory or the sauce factory, or to be unemployed, and I escaped that fate by choosing to make different things. Everybody here has a place that they'd rather forget and disguise. And that's where the lyric comes from. It's around going, well, actually, you've got the ability to self-actualize, to change yourself. You think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Those 7 needs that you've got, the one at the top is safe-actualizations or self-actualization, becoming who you want to be and not who the circumstances define and force you to be. And be conscious about your decisions and about how you live. And that is a very keen part of Supernatural, Superserious, is about saying, a celebration of your there's nothing dark and there's nothing weird, and don't be afraid, I will hold you near from the seance where you first betrayed an open heart on a darkened stage. And it's kind of going, well, you're through the music and the art and the ideas that you both experience and create, you will become the person that you want to be. It's a really good lyric, by the way. I mean, seriously, I could just go, well, it's a good lyric, guys, and just go, wow, this track. So yeah, and then we've got but what's the point of that? I'd rather give you something a bit more meaningful. Track 4, Hollow Man. This is the second single that's released on the album. Again, released as a 7-inch and as a promotional CD single. So there wasn't a commercial CD single that I've ever found of Hollow Man. And by the way, I have been looking. And this 7-inch has the lyrics on the inside. I really like the visual art that the band are doing at this point, but this is the last CD single from this period. I found one for Oh My Heart, the first single off Collapse Into Now, but physical singles, especially in CD forms, were pretty much dead on arrival here. Track 5 is Houston, and this opens with, "If the storm doesn't kill me, the government will." Well, that's pretty clear. Nailing your colours to the mast and basically saying, no, I don't like this government, I don't trust this government, I don't think they're any good, I do not like them at all. Then we've got track 6, which is Accelerate, the title track from the album. And by the way, this is a sister song to the song I Wanted to Be Wrong. So there's a lyric in here where he sings at the end, "Accelerate, I'm incomplete, I'm incomplete, I'm incomplete." And then the other line is, "I'm in complete control." And the word control is deliberately removed to make the song have a degree of ambiguity that's within it. But again, the song is around control and ownership and self-actualization and agency, and around being who you want to be. Number 7, Until the Day is Done, which is a revisited, rewritten version of one of the tracks that's on the Monster box set. I can't remember which one now. I think maybe it's Black Sky 420, but I could be completely wrong. And Until the Day is Done again kind of has a lyric that kind of indicates that the world is going through a schism or a shudder or some kind of terrible event, and when we come to the other end of that, the post event person, we're not going to go back to normal. Normal is going to be whatever the post event world is, and obviously with COVID you've got pre-COVID and you're post-COVID, but you don't go back to the world and go exactly the way it used to be. You come through it the other side with the scars and experiences that you've got, and Until the Day is Done goes through that. Mr. Richards, track 8 on the album, is, according to Michael Stipe, it's made up of a composite of high-up political figures that have disgusted him. Of course, the George Bush administration was in power at the time. By listening to R.E.M. and the political kind of angles that they had and the affiliations that they made, you can pretty much work out they weren't fans of the George Bush administration, and even less of the Trump one, and so therefore were disgusted at what they perceived to be the hypocrisy, incompetence, racism, and willing cruelty of them. And then we've got a Song for the Submarine. Again, this is a lovely song. You kind of think this album's going really, really quickly. Well, it is. And when they were writing it, Peter Buck said, "I want to write a song that's or I think Michael Stipe said, "I want songs that are no more than 90 seconds." Now they failed, because otherwise the album would be 30 songs long, and it would be 45 minutes. But what you did have is very short, very compact arrangements. There was no repetition. The songs were edited, simplified to the point where only the core message comes through. Now, Song for the Submarine is actually a pretty complicated lyric. It references Feeling Gravity's Pull in the second line. It references Electron Blue, one of the songs from Around the World, in one of the other lyrics as well. It's the lyric, "It feels in dreams that everything's there for you. The city breathes and pulses. It's fuel, electron blue. I knew that you could see right through it." So it's an intercontextual song. It calls back to Feeling Gravity's Pull. It calls back to Electron Blue. It calls back to The End of the World. It calls back to High Speed Train. It kind of has the same kind of things around it, and it has a lyric that addresses a future dystopia, or an apocalyptic place where perhaps the future of mankind was inevitably headed for. So it's kind of like if somebody turned Mad Max Fury Road into an R.E.M. song. Not sure where I'm going with that. Maybe I should stop. But no, it's a great little song. In fact, all the songs on Accelerate are really good. Accelerate is so underrated. I really, really rate this album. But this is clearly a design which you can see on my T-shirt here, which I will mention later on. Horse to Water, which starts with, "I could have kept my head down, I could have kept my mouth shut." And there's an idea that perhaps if R.E.M. had not followed their beliefs, had not vocalised them, then perhaps they would have been more accepted in certain parts of the world, certain parts of America. Perhaps people would have less thought about that bunch of liberal people with the gay singer, who's a terrible band. And then we're coming to the album's end now. Actually, we've got "I'm Gonna DJ," which is the last song on the standard 11-track version of the album. 34 minutes that goes in the blink of an eye. Very, very fast. This is the song that the band played as the last song at near enough every show on the Around the Sun World Tour. I saw them first play it at the Hammersmith Odeon. I know it was called Hammersmith Apollo, but it's always going to be the Hammersmith Odeon. It doesn't matter what anybody else tells you, it's the Hammersmith Odeon, people. Alright, so I saw them at the Hammersmith Odeon in 2005, and I'm Gonna DJ is around, well, death is pretty final, I'm collecting vinyl, and I'm gonna DJ at the end of the world, and how music is sometimes the only thing that makes sense in a senseless world. Then you've got the credits for 6 Days, not a great film. And you've got some technical stuff there. Now, the DVD edition of Accelerate comes with 2 bonus tracks, and those bonus tracks are Airliner and Redhead Walking. Airliner appears as the B-side on Supernatural Superserious, and on download versions of the single, Redhead Walking, I think, is a vocal track, but it's also as an MP3 on the 6 Days DVD. I think Redhead Walking is pretty good, but it is very, very typically an R.E.M. B-side. There's lots of those, but it's one of the less vocal R.E.M. B-sides that there is. And I think Accelerate was as an album is a triumph. I think it's really bloody good. Most bands never get to their 25th year and still put out records that are as good as their first one, although of course actually no, Metallica's 25th year they did release Death Magnetic, so I think we can give them a pass there. But as you can see, Live at the Olympia was the release that really kick-started the band, because they learned they had to make a noise and a racket together. It had to be 5 people and playing these songs in front of other people to make it work. Obviously you've got Staring Down the Barrel of Middle Distance and On the Fly, which is on Live at the Olympia, but what you've also got is a band that's looking at the past like it's a different age, and they're trying to not recreate the past, but they're trying to revisit the past and go, what were we thinking at that point? What does that person, you know, the person that I was 25 years ago, who is he now? Where is he? And you can imagine me being 50 next year. If I go back to who I was 25 years ago, generally I'm very similar, apart from the fact I had more hair there and less fat here, really. I'm much the same guy. I'm like very much the same things in terms of music, film, art, politics. I'm still, you know, attracted to the same type of people that I was 25 years ago, largely because I have fantastic taste, and also you know, the things that I'm experiencing now, I'm kind of going, this is basically what 20-year-old me would have wanted 50-year-old me to have been, is the same guy, but perhaps a little bit happier, a little bit more sorted, and with more cats. And so R.E.M. are kind of trying to go comparing the lives that they were living then with the lives that they had 25 years previously, going, is this the same person? Am I proud of who I was, or have I changed and got into, you know, golf and stock trading? Who knows? But R.E.M. are kind of looking at their past back catalogue, and they did this by revisiting the songs at the Olympia through the lens of what would now feel like to be. You know, who would I be? What would I do? How would I behave? Those type of things. And I think it's a very fascinating dichotomy to be in. It's to revisit who you once were and to go, would the who I once was be proud of the who I am now? I can say that the who I am now is somebody that the who that I once was would probably quite like. Might find me a bit annoying, but living in my own head, I've seen everything I've ever done, so I know which bits of me are annoying because I'm always there with me, you know. But there you are. So the band went on the road. They played a lot of shows, starting in March and ending in Mexico on, I think, the 18th of November 2008. And there's lots of live releases from the tour. The first one, which came out, was this, R.E.M. live in Austin, Texas, a show for the Austin City Limits TV show in America, where the band played a set of 17 songs to an invited audience of 300 or so competition winners. This is the unedited version of the performance. They did play a couple of songs twice because they made some mistakes. This was their first appearance. But this is one performance of every song that they performed and recorded that night at the Austin City Limit stage, in support of their 14th studio album, Accelerate, according to what it said, on a breezy Texas night, March 13th, 2008. I don't have any memory of March 13th, 2008, in front of 350 people. So this is the full-length version of it. It is R.E.M. playing in a room to a small number of people, playing those songs live. And they play 3, 4, 5, I should have counted this before, 6, 7, I think they played 10 songs off the album. That's a very good score, actually. It is a bit frustrating because the album was still a month away from being released here. So they had 10 songs that you didn't particularly know. I, of course, being the bootleg hound that I was scooping up the various TV broadcasts and downloading them and listening to the live versions of the tracks with furious acclaim to make sure that I knew them, because I was going to go and see R.E.M. pretty soon. There's also a bootleg or an unofficial DVD which was recorded in Paris on March 21st, 2008. But of particular interest, the band played the Royal Albert Hall in London on March the 24th, 2008. This is an unofficial CD of that set, which was broadcast on the radio. I think they performed 15 or 16 songs here, and it was to 5,500 people at the Albert Hall. So I saw R.E.M. at the Albert Hall, which is pretty amazing. And we were in the stall section right up at the top. Tickets were £25. And there was a balcony, and you stood on the balcony, and you could look over the balcony, and you could see the show. It did feel a little bit like being on the moon, or watching television in somebody else's back garden. And it was strange because actually of the songs that they played this night, there were a number of songs that they didn't play that they had rehearsed. So, for example, at Oxegen, they had So Central Rain, Fall on Me, Bad Day. Yeah, Bad Day. So that's at least 3 songs that they had, which they didn't do. And What's the Frequency? Kenneth as well, which they played in Paris. Final Straw, Walk Unafraid. So they had 6 or 7 songs that they rehearsed, but they didn't play that night. Even though Michael Stipe said, "Well, we've got no curfew, so we can play as long as we want." He ended up just chatting for 10 minutes about how he'd been to the Royal Albert Hall before, but he'd never actually played there. He'd been to a fashion show there, but he'd never played, and he really wanted to play there. And then when you get there, and then you only play 15 songs instead of 21, and you spend 10 minutes in between songs, 10 minutes in between one of the songs in the encore, talking at great length about nothing of very much interest, and not playing, let's say, 2 of those 6 songs, which perhaps would have helped. So 9 songs out of, I think, 15 the band played that night were new songs that hadn't yet been released. I've been listening to the bootleg, so I knew them, but I was still kind of frustrated by that, because I was kind of going, it's not a friendly set towards fans. The tickets were expensive. They sold out very, very quickly. And we were very lucky to get the tickets to see them. And actually, it's a great shame, because there was the person in front of us at the Royal Albert Hall box office had clearly been sold fake tickets, and paid a lot of money for them, and was practically in tears at the thought that, yes, we're going to go and see R.E.M. play at the Royal Albert Hall. I made over £100 to see them, and the tickets turned out to be bogus. And the venue just simply couldn't help. No, we've got no tickets we can sell you. Otherwise we would. But no, it was a great shame for that person. I still obviously remember that, otherwise I wouldn't have mentioned it. But the Royal Albert Hall show I thought was really, really good. We saw one more show on that tour. We saw the last London performance at the Twickenham Stadium on the 30th of August. 2008, which, had I been cynical, I would have done this on the Tuesday, which would have been the 14th anniversary of the last show, but they played 27 songs there, and the last song that I saw R.E.M. play live was Man on the Moon, and that show at Twickenham was also the last time that they performed Perfect Circle anywhere in the world. When the band also had a week of stuff at the ICA, so they had shows of videos and concerts and short films and things like that. They had a booklet. Michael Stipe talked about his photography, that type of thing, but they didn't play the ICA because the ICA was far, far, far too small for them, having a capacity of just 350. So the Royal Albert Hall was their show, and they also released 2 other things. But when they went on the tour in 2008, they played mostly stadiums. So the last time I saw them was in a stadium. The top deck of Twickenham was empty, and I kind of thought, okay, so you're playing venues that are bigger than you are. This was the last R.E.M. tour, and the reason it was the last R.E.M. tour was twofold, or threefold. The first one was there was a 3-hour business meeting in Bergen, which, by the way, is probably the date where R.E.M. probably split it up, where each member of the band was kind of thinking, I don't really want to be here. Why am I in a business meeting in Bergen, of all places, when I could be walking around and enjoying the place where I am? So let me see quickly if I can find Bergen. So September the 4th, 2008, a week after I saw R.E.M. It's there on the tour list. That was probably the meeting where the band members, although they didn't vocalise it, decided that maybe this was the end for the group, because instead of being able to enjoy the time in Bergen, they were instead working. And they're like, why am I working and sitting 4 hours in a hotel planning out the next few months? They'd been offered a second round of American shows in theatres and arenas, and they kind of decided that, well, by the way, this photograph is from the Royal Albert Hall. they decided, well, we've been around the world, several times. So remember, since 1998, they'd toured Europe and US in 1999. They'd done a promo tour in 2001. They'd done Europe and America in 2003, 2004, 2005, 2008. So that's 6 tours in 10 years. And they probably felt, we've been everywhere, we've seen everything, we've done all the things that we need to do, we've conquered the mountains, we've sold out the stadiums, we've sold out the venues, we've sold out the arenas, we've sold out the theatres, everywhere we've played. And the only thing that we get now by going around the 7th time is money. And when you have that much money, the question is, well, actually some things are more important than money. Do I want to do it just for my ego? Because frankly, if you've been playing huge venues for the past 25 years, or most of the past 25 years, you kind of go, look, I know I'm good, I've had my ego applauded enough, I think it's time to stop. And if all you get out of it is money, and you have more money than you can ever spend, why are you going to do it? I think at this point, actually, from Peter Buck's mind, maybe R.E.M. had become the side project that lucratively funded his other activity and the other 17 or so other bands that he was in at exactly the same time. Certainly, Michael Stipe, I think, decided that he didn't really want to do it. Mike Mills probably wasn't as well. And you come to a point where you kind of go, well, I've seen everything, I've done everything, I've been everywhere, I've got money. The only thing that I get by going out on tour again is more money, and there are other things than money which please me. You have to be who you are, and you have to follow where your heart takes you. And that was why the 2008 tour was the last R.E.M. tour. I saw them at the height. They never phoned it in. They always played great shows, even if the albums weren't great. But they left at the time before it became too late. I've seen bands where I kind of thought you probably should have hung it up a couple of years sooner. This was not one of those cases. I think R.E.M. quit at the right time for the right reasons, and that was what was important. There are 2 live releases which came out from the tour itself. Disc 5 of the R.E.M. TV box set features 3 live shows. One recorded at the Rolling Stone in Milan, one recorded at the Oxegen Festival in Ireland, and then a 60-minute set in Athens, Greece, which is truncated from a 95-minute set that was broadcast on MTV. So you get 3 live sets from the period of the band performing live. Let's think, the Rolling Stone in Milan is about an hour. I watched it recently. Oxygen is about half an hour, and the Athens is about an hour as well. So you've got 4 shows from that particular tour, which have been released, as well as the live at the Olympia set. And the final release that we had from the Accelerate tour is some songs on the R.E.M. at the BBC box set, featuring what I generally regard to be the last new R.E.M. vocal song to be released. That was recorded as an ongoing concern during the band's lifetime. It was a radio session for the BBC in 2008. They performed Supernatural, Superserious, and a song by Editors, Munich, for the BBC Radio 1 Live Lounge on the 26th of March 2008. Munich is only released on the Live at the BBC box set, and it's an incredible song. I listened to it, I listened to R.E.M.'s version of it, and I went, oh, that is fabulous. That is, without really thinking about it, it was an R.E.M. song that R.E.M. didn't write, in the same way that Hurt by 9 Inch Nails was actually a Johnny Cash song that just happened to be written by 9 Inch Nails and was released first by 9 Inch Nails. The R.E.M. at the BBC box set is, and I've said this many times, a fabulous addition to your R.E.M. collection if you have the opportunity to own it. It is essential, and it has lots of great performances on it. So that brings R.E.M.'s Accelerate to a close. In retrospect, aside from the mastering, it aged very well. It sounds like a creative rebirth for the band. Some of the songs, perhaps, are quite short, and sometimes I would have preferred slightly longer versions of them. But in the ranking of R.E.M. albums, Accelerate is most definitely near the top of the pack for me. It's the best album that the band recorded after 1998, which means it's the best album by R.E.M. that's happened in the past 24 years. God, I feel old when I say that. But this period of R.E.M. with Bill on drums, Bill Riflin on drums, is my favourite period of R.E.M. that I got to experience live. Certainly better than Joe Waronker on drums, and the album has aged very, very well. I think it's a hidden gem in the band's catalogue, and it's been massively overlooked. If you sat there and going, "Oh, I'd really like to hear some R.E.M. that I haven't heard for a while," put Accelerate in, and you may fall in love with them all over again. If you ever fell out of love with them, I certainly didn't. And there, here endeth the lesson. So, in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. Please subscribe if you're tempted or you like what I've done previously. I'd also like to say hello and thank you to the people that I met this week when I was on tour with the Twilight Sad in the north of England. Some of you have watched these previous videos. One of you said it was brilliant, and you may have been drunk. Another one of you said that you disagreed with me about every 5 minutes, but you won't disagree with me when I say you're absolutely entitled to be right to think that. I am wrong about a number of things, but one of them is some of the bands that I liked when I was much, much younger, which have in retrospect aged like milk. Not going to name any names because I don't kiss and tell, but of course it's all part of life through its pageant, as Inspector Clouseau said in The Pink Panther Strikes Again. I think it's The Pink Panther Strikes Again from 1976, which I saw about 2 months ago and is awful. Do not watch it, because that is the only connection with R.E.M. that the Pink Panther films have that are not very good. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up now. Stay beautiful. I'll see you soon for another episode where I talk about another old record made by somebody who's either dead or whose band has split up, because that's my forte. In the meantime, I'll post links to lots and lots of live shows by R.E.M. from around about this period in the comments down below. Adios, amigos, as the Ramones said on their final live album, and see you soon. Bye.